Introducing Home Care Plus, a new subscription service from Lowe's that helps make life easier by giving members a hand with home maintenance. Let Lowe's tackle the tasks you keep meaning to do, like electric dryer vent cleaning, replacing hard-to-reach light bulbs, and more. Subscribe to Home Care Plus for just $99 a year and consider your to-do list done. Members get more at Lowe's. Available in select zip codes only. Cancel anytime. Non-refundable fee. Product purchase required. Terms and service restrictions apply. Details at lowes.com/terms. Subject to change.
Stone Zone, entertaining and informative
on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
You are now entering the Stone Zone. It's only the hottest political show on radio today. Only yesterday, President Donald Trump lashed out at three of his critics, at least two of which are former supporters. Alex Jones, the famous podcaster, Tucker Carlson, formerly of Fox News, and, of course, Megyn Kelly. Now, Megyn Kelly, of course, did try to stick a shiv in Trump's back in the presidential debates when he ran for his first term. But in more recent years, she had become a podcaster and become more pro-Trump. I think she thought she was losing her audience. Then Alex Jones challenged me to come on his show today, midday, and defend the president. And I checked in with the president to ask him what he thought, and he said, take him on, and I did. It was a mutter. It was a brawl. The champ here remains undefeated. What upset me about Alex Jones is that he called for the replacement of President Donald Trump under the 25th Amendment when he was certain that the president was careening towards World War III in Iran. Little did he know that Donald Trump put so much pressure on the Iranians that they blinked, and they submitted a 10-point peace plan reopening the talks. Donald Trump will always prefer talks to war. And this weekend, J.D. Vance heads a negotiating team along with presidential son-in-law Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff to try yet again to reach a peace agreement with the Iranians. The case that I made was very simple. Let's review President Trump's record, if we may. First and foremost, the president has completely restructured the U.S. military, done away with the DEI nonsense, gotten rid of the globalist generals, put America back on a war footing with a lethal national defense. That means that the military cannot be weaponized against the American people in the case of a future constitutional crisis. The president also ended the war on cryptocurrency and Bitcoin. Joe Biden hated this alternative monetary system because the government can't control it. In fact, they prosecuted a number of people claiming that Bitcoin was a security and those selling it needed a security license. Nonsense. Trump also outlawed men playing in women's sports. Now you see the president and the vice president cracking down on the millions of dollars of fraud in federal programs and ending the use of USAID to finance color revolutions and other political dirty tricks. In his first term, the president gave us the largest tax cut in American history, and now that tax cut has been renewed, plus 88% of those currently receiving Social Security benefits will pay no taxes at all. He also ended the moratorium on exploration of gas and oil, which had begun under Joe Biden. At the same time, he was ending the tax on tips. He appointed 3 Supreme Court justices, Kavanaugh, Gorsuch, and Barrett, who have created a sometimes durable conservative majority, but he appointed 200 young conservative federal judges to the bench. His appointments eventually allowed for the overturning of Roe v. Wade, which does not outlaw abortion, but returns that decision where it belongs, to the states. He passed the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act of 2017. Those are major reductions for both individuals and corporations. Reduced regulations across all industries, energy, finance, and business. Pre-COVID, we had low unemployment, rising wages, strong stock market, and trade and industrial policy. He renegotiated NAFTA and the U.S.-Mexican-Canada agreement, making it more affordable to U.S. manufacturing. He imposed tariffs on China, reshaping global trade dynamics. He pushed the Buy American, High American energy independence policy, expanded domestic oil and gas production. For the first time ever, the United States became a net energy exporter. He rolled back Obama-era environmental regulations, and when it came to the border and immigration, he closed our open border. He re-implemented the Remain in Mexico policy, and he has now reduced illegal crossings in certain sectors to almost zero. He defeated the ISIS territorial caliphate, and of course, brought into place the Abraham Accords, a peace agreement between Israel and our other Arab state allies. Took a much harder stance on Iran by withdrawing from the nuclear weapons deal, in which Barack Obama was actually paying the Iranian politicians with cash, pallets of cash on the side that weren't even in the agreement. Cut funding and got us out of the World Health Organization entirely. It looks to me like we're headed for the exits on NATO as well. Promoted religious liberty protections. In the second term, you have even greater accomplishments. He issued a record number of executive orders early in the term, revoking and reversing over 100 of Joe Biden's brainless policies. He pardoned all of those victimized on January 6th. He also, as I say, introduced the no tax on tips and no tax on overtime tax deductions, as well as new tax deductions for senior citizens. And of course, his tariff deals have brought billions and billions of dollars to the bottom line. We have multiple trade deals and industrial investments announced already. He's now focusing on supply chain independence and national industry, border security, and immigration. Major enforcement expansion, of course, mass deportation of illegal immigrants, increasing ICE operations. Reported sharp declines in illegal crossings, almost down to zero on our southern border. Policies are now aimed at asylum loopholes being closed and reinstating America's first doctrine globally. Once again, he withdrew us from the Paris Climate Agreement. Not sure if you know that, but the world's greatest polluter is China. Under the Paris Climate Accords, the Americans would pay $325 million a year. China would have paid zero. Donald Trump said, we're out of there. He's increased our military involvement and more aggressive posture in the Middle East to protect our interests there. He's also playing catch up when it comes to rare earth minerals with deals in Ukraine, Vietnam, and across the globe. New deal just announced in Congo. A deal in Nigeria expected to be announced shortly. He's gone back to expanding fossil fuel exploration and production, rolled back environmental restrictions against both. They put out a executive order aimed at ending federal censorship. Of course, the moves against the DEI programs and the whole federal work policies and other various actions, including those service members who were required against their will to take the COVID-19 vaccination, are now eligible for back pay and for their medical expenses. At the same time, he's attempting to reshape the education and federal workforce, cracking down on the drug cartels and fentanyl trafficking, expanding enforcement operations on both domestically, increased coordination with foreign governments on crime. So whether it's courts, tax reform, deregulation, trade reset, border framework, Middle East diplomacy, second term, the expansion and enforcement of all of the above, aggressive action, harder immigration enforcement, expanded tariffs and industrial policy, more aggressive foreign policy for the first time puts America first. And of course, his moves in Iran and Venezuela very cleverly cut off China's access to cheap oil. This is the brilliance of the art of the deal. So I hit Alex Jones pretty hard. To my surprise, rather than hitting back, he reaffirmed his support for President Trump. He pointed out that he's disagreed with him from time to time, but thinks he's a heck of a lot better than Kamala Harris would have been. To me, it was an overall win. We did have to visit the role of investigative journalist Laura Loomer. This woman's a menace. First of all, when people are paying you to write and say things, you're not an investigative journalist, you're a paid propagandist. Laura Loomer should make public a list of everyone who's paying her because, well, nobody's all that interested in the future of Chevron's oil leases in Venezuela. She brings it up 3 times a week. And of course, I busted her this week, as was reported in Axios early this morning. You see, you know how when you were younger and you heard that your boyfriend or your girlfriend was going to break up with you, so you preemptively would break up with them so that they couldn't say they broke up with you? What Laura Loomer here did was very clever. She tried either directly or through intermediaries to convince President Trump that Tulsi Gabbard, the director of national intelligence, was going to resign in protest of his actions in Iran, and therefore he needed to move quickly to fire her. Fortunately, the president called me, and I told him that was categorically false, having talked to Tulsi Gabbard that very morning. And I also explained that Tulsi Gabbard had done nothing to merit being terminated. She testified before the Congress where Laura Loomer said she backstabbed the president. No, I don't think so. What she said was, as the head of ODNI, she was responsible for getting the very best intelligence and giving it to the president. That's what she did. The president then decided to move on Iran, and she supported that move. But because it is reported that she has reservations about the war against Iran, as reportedly as does Vice President J.D. Vance, she's not popular with the Israel First lobby. So I called out Laura Loomer. I said she was lying. She thought it would become a self-fulfilling prophecy, and she's been calling me names ever since. And we found out, quite sadly, that, well, Laura's been mentally institutionalized at least twice before regarding her mental stability. I'm actually worried about whether she's a danger to herself or others. But this idea that she's a journalist, we have to dispose of that quickly. Journalists aren't paid to take any particular point of view. Laura and I were friends for many, many years, but it seems to me like she's joined the Bushes and the Cheneys and the Clintons and the Obamas and the Bidens as a war hawk. She might be more comfortable now dining with Lindsey Graham than she is dining with me. This is an epic Twitter war. If you haven't checked it out, we're going back and forth, and she's dealing with the OG here, so she shouldn't expect to win this fight. But she keeps insisting she's an independent journalist, and I keep laughing in her face. Still like to know how she ran for Congress in 2 races. Now, the first one, in all honesty, I give her credit. She took on a very tough race in a Democrat district. It was the district Mar-a-Lago's in, ran against Democrat Lois Frankel, ran a pretty good race, all things considered. But her second race for Congress, in all honesty, well, my dog, Pee-wee 2.0, could have won that race. She was against a weak incumbent who was too ill to campaign, had less than $325,000 in the bank. She raised almost a little more than $750,000, but none of that money got spent on radio commercials or cable commercials or television commercials or mailings or blast emails or blast text messages. In fact, I couldn't find any evidence of voter contact at all. So my question is a simple one. Laura, what happened to the money? I'll wait. Thanks for tuning in today to the Stone Zone. We'll be right back on the other side with more hot politics, including a roundup of what's happening in the Iran war.
I sold my car in Carvana last night.
Well, that's cool.
No, you don't understand. It went perfectly. Real offer, down to the penny. They're picking it up tomorrow. Nothing went wrong.
So, what's the problem?
That is the problem. Nothing in my life goes as smoothly. I'm waiting for the catch.
Maybe there's no catch.
That's exactly what a catch would want me to think.
Wow, you need to relax.
I need to knock on wood. Do we have wood? Is this table wood?
I think it's laminate.
Okay, yeah, that's good. That's close enough.
Car selling without a catch. Sell your car today on Carvana. Pickup fees may apply.
The Stone Zone. Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back to the Stone Zone. Anyone who knows me knows I love great pizza, and there is a trend in the country I really approve of. New Haven-style pizza, the pizza I grew up with, is back. I was born in Norwalk, Connecticut. There was a restaurant there called Phil Baker's, named for a prize fighter who owned the place. It is the pizza of my childhood. I still can smell it. I can still taste it, but I've never found it duplicated anyplace. But the big three in New Haven were always Sally's, Frank Pepe's, and a place called the Modern. Now, very recently, Frank Pepe's and Sally's both announced that they would be moving towards franchising. And they, in the case of Frank Pepe's, opened several stores here in Florida. The problem is that the style of New Haven pizza requires an 860-degree oven. And they decided to open locations in Palm Beach and other places. But one place they opened was Plantation, Florida. Problem is that the liberals on the city council in Plantation have a health ordinance that doesn't allow you to have a commercial oven that burns any hotter than 680 degrees. Well, that requires the pizzaiola to cook the pizza longer, and that makes the bottom of the pizza drier and harder, kind of like a cracker. So the pizza doesn't have that appropriate flop. People in New York, they know what I'm talking about. Also do the people in Connecticut. So Frank Pepe's first location announced last week, quite sadly, that it would close. In the meantime, there's a new contender called Abitz, because, of course, in New Haven, they spell pizza A-P-I-Z-Z-A, Abitz, that is open locations in several locations here. So this is the pizza of my youth. This is the pizza I dream about. This is the pizza that may very soon be available near you. Now, pizza is like sex. When it's bad, well, it's still pretty good. Nothing better than a slice at 3 o'clock in the morning after you, shall we say, had a few cocktails. So keep an eye out for all of these places. I have my preferences, and I'm not going to tell you locations unless they want to pay for advertising here on the show. But keep an eye out for New Haven style pizza. It's a generic style of pizza. I think you'll love it. No, by the way, when we talk about pizza here in the Stone Zone, it's not some coded language pertaining to child sex trafficking. Who do you think I am, John Podesta? I should also mention that Patsy's Pizza, a venerable New York tradition that started up in Harlem, they have just opened stores across the country, including here in Florida. So I look, the more pizza, the better. I could eat it for breakfast. In fact, this morning I had pizza with a sunny side up egg on it that my mother used to do. My wife cooked for me this morning. The first time I had that was in the streets of Nice, which is actually in France. You're listening to the Stone Zone. I'm Roger Stone, and we'll be right back with a report on the war.
The Stone Zone, entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
And we're back in the Stone Zone. It's only the hottest political radio show on the air today, anywhere in the United States. Well, a fragile calm is emerging in the Middle East, but tensions remain high as the United States pushes for a lasting ceasefire with Iran while standing firm against any ongoing threats. President Donald Trump says he's optimistic a deal is within reach, with Vice President J.D. Vance set to head high-stakes negotiations in Pakistan this weekend. The move signals serious U.S. commitment to restoring stability through strength and diplomacy. At the same time, Israel, under Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, is pursuing possible ceasefire talks with Lebanon, even after launching major strikes against Hezbollah targets there. Those operations came at a high cost, with reports of more than 250 killed and over 1,000 wounded, drawing international criticism and making the fragile peace process, well, even more tenuous. Israeli officials maintain their actions are necessary to defend the thousands of rockets fired by Hezbollah in recent weeks. Meanwhile, Iran continues to test the limits of the ceasefire. The regime still effectively controls the critical Strait of Hormuz, restricting global fish shipping to a small number of approved vessels and raising concerns about potential fees and interference. President Trump has warned Tehran in no uncertain terms, honor the agreement, which includes free passage through the Straits of Hormuz, or face renewed U.S. military action. The president has continued to array our military assets in the region. He's not afraid to use them if he has to. They're about to find out that Donald Trump is not somebody to trifle with. Despite some violations and last-minute strikes, bombs have largely gone quiet across most of the region, a sign that deterrence may actually be working. Energy markets remain on the edge, with oil prices rising amid uncertainty, while global leaders watch closely. Much is still up in the air at the present time, but the Trump administration is dedicated to making sure that Iran doesn't become a nation-building exercise similar to this country's failures in Iraq or Afghanistan. We have achieved regime change, sent a strong message, taken out their nuclear capacity, and now we're working very quickly towards getting out of there. Meanwhile, First Lady Melania Trump very forcefully pushed back yesterday against false and malicious claims tying her to deceased pedophile and Clinton intimate Jeffrey Epstein. In a statement yesterday made from the White House, Melania Trump made it clear that she was never friends with Epstein, never had any relationship with him or his associate, Ghislaine Maxwell, was never a victim or a collaborator of this ghoulish, predatory pair. Melania said the rumors circulating online are mean-spirited attempts to defame her reputation. Mrs. Trump acknowledged that she and former President Donald Trump attended some social events where Epstein was present, something she noted was not unusual given overlapping social circles in places like New York City and Palm Beach, but she emphasized she had no knowledge of Epstein's criminal activities at the time and no personal connection to him. Now, I was around in those days when Donald Trump was a bachelor between wives and when they were dating. And I found Melania to be an extraordinary, gracious, kind, cultured individual who would end up being one of our greatest first ladies in terms of her leadership and her courage. She had to stand by while attempts were made to keep her husband off the ballot, to destroy them financially, to put Donald Trump in jail. She warned that Americans should be cautious about misinformation, calling many of the circulated images and stories online completely false. I was shocked last night to see a number of nude images on her, so I ran them through one of those AI detection programs. Yep, they were completely fraudulent, manipulated, artificial intelligence. The First Lady did not hold back in criticizing those spreading the allegations, accusing politically motivated actors of trying to damage her reputation for personal, political, or financial gain. At the same time, she called for transparency and justice for actual victims, urging Congress to hold public hearings so that survivors can share their stories on the record. This is just another phase of the Epstein hoax, where President Trump, his families, and his associates are being smeared mercilessly, while the actual Epstein associates, like Bill and Hillary Clinton, Treasury Secretary Larry Summers, former U.S. Senate Majority Leader George Mitchell, former Governor Bill Richardson, no focus on them. There were certainly politicians who went to Epstein's island and may have partaken in Epstein's depravity, but none of them were Republicans. The Democrats won't let this go, continuing to smear the president mercilessly about false connections to Epstein, while those elites who actually did partake in these disgusting child sex operations are glossed over. At the same time, we found out that, just as I predicted back in 2018, Steve Bannon, who on his show The War Room every day pretended to be a Trump supporter, was secretly denigrating Trump in a series of emails, calling for Trump's removal under the 25th Amendment, referring to the president as stupid, talking openly about undermining his China trade policy. It's not surprising Steve Bannon pled guilty in Manhattan to embezzling $15 million from the Build the Wall Foundation, but very curiously, he received no jail time whatsoever. He was actually, that trial was originally before one of the judges who sat in judgment of President Donald Trump in the lawfare against him. Now we learn that Bannon was involved in a $1 billion fraud operation with the Chinese national names Miles Guo. Now, when Miles Guo was prosecuted, he was asked repeatedly whether his money came from the Chinese Communist Party and about his connections to a mysterious William G. You can go online. William G. is a Chinese Communist Party operator. I now have, and very soon will release, a list of all of the so-called influencers that Steve Bannon was paying. The double game here is one that is shocking, but Bannon, who just a few months ago was talking about running for president himself, I think is now no longer a credible spokesman for the MAGA movement. The number of people watching his War Room, kind of ironic, that used to be the name of my old show on InfoWars until Bannon ripped it off. I think the number of people watching his show has dropped precipitously. Now, it's hard to understand because this is a guy who literally doesn't bathe, doesn't wash his hair, doesn't shave, doesn't brush his teeth. He's kind of got the toothless hobo thing going on. Just don't understand why he thinks that that would be politically attractive to anyone. Frankly, he's starting to look more and more like, well, Eric Swalwell. Speaking of Eric Swalwell, more women coming forward today claiming that the congressman made inappropriate sexual advances against them, pressured them for sex. There are evidently a number of text messages. I predicted all of this last night online, therefore tomorrow I'll be blamed for all of it. Same thing happened with Al Franken. I had a friend at Fox told me that Franken would be exposed as a sexual predator. I posted it online. Next thing I know, all kinds of crazy lefties are claiming that I set Al Franken up and that I was somehow coaching the woman whose accusations would blow him out of the Senate. No, sorry to disappoint you, but then I get blamed sometimes when it's raining. Early polling shows that Kamala Harris is now thinking very seriously about another presidential run as she ramps up her public appearances and her sharp criticism of President Trump. Harris, who lost the 2024 election, has reemerged on the national stage, speaking out on foreign policy, particularly the conflict with Iran, attempting to portray herself as a peacemonger in a pathetic gambit that's really fooling nobody. Her upcoming appearance at Reverend Al Sharpton's National Ashcan Network Convention is seen as a pivotal moment, with many Democrats viewing it as an early test of her political strength. Party insiders say Harris appears to be testing the waters, especially as Democrats struggle with a leadership vacuum ahead of their own midterms. Now, I think she made a wise decision to sidestep the governor's race in California. She could have been elected governor had she wanted to. My old mentor, Richard Nixon, made that mistake after losing very narrowly to John F. Kennedy, an election that I believe and say in two books document was stolen. Dwight Eisenhower and New York Governor Tom Dewey talked Nixon into running for governor of California to keep his political prospects nationally alive. Nixon had no interest or passion in state issues like water or mental health and so on. His expertise was in federal and foreign policy issues. And then surprisingly, he lost that gubernatorial election when the Cuban Missile Crisis broke out just days before the election. And of course, voters rallied around the president, John F. Kennedy, and John F. Kennedy headed to California to campaign for incumbent Pat Brown. Richard Nixon was considered washed up after that. In this case, Kamala Harris ran that very same risk. She has no interest in being governor of California. Probably a good thing she didn't run. Now, when Harris whines, it just comes off like sour grapes from a loser. However, this egomaniacal narcissist will probably run again in 2028, but don't expect her to make it past the primaries. Remember, last time, the people of no kings, the people whining about no kings, they nominated a queen who no one had ever voted for. No Democrat primary voter, no Democrat caucus voter, no Democrat delegate. Hypocrisy in today's Democrat Party? Wow, that's a surprise. One guy who's not a hypocrite and a major break from his party, U.S. Senator from Pennsylvania, John Fetterman, is backing President Trump's military strikes in Iran, saying that they've made the world a safer place. Fetterman argued that Iran responds only to strength and that recent U.S. and Israeli actions have dealt a serious blow to the regime's nuclear ambitions. Fetterman pointed out the destruction of key facilities and the targeting of nuclear scientists is evidence that Iran's capabilities have been significantly degraded. While acknowledging concerns about remaining enriched uranium, still Fetterman maintained the overall impact has improved global security. He also didn't hold back in condemning Iran, calling its actions war crimes, and emphasizing the United States continues to stand as a force of good. Importantly, Fetterman rejected calls from his fellow Democrats to rein the president in through a new war powers vote. He warned that such efforts would undermine the mission and send the wrong message while U.S. forces are still engaged. That stance put him at odds with Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, a man already in deep trouble, both in the state of New York, where he fears a challenge from AOC, and within his own Senate caucus, where whispers about his age and his weakness have compelled many to believe that Elizabeth Warren will challenge him, the senator from Massachusetts, also known as Pocahontas, the fake Indian, will challenge him for the leadership of the Democrat Party. Schumer has argued that the U.S. is worse off now and claims without evidence that Iran's nuclear program remains intact. What would he know? The divide, it highlights a growing split within the Democrat Party between those recognizing the effectiveness of strong pro-Israel leadership and those continuing to oppose it in a cynical partisan ploy for nothing other than political power. Fetterman is one of the few Democrats who continues to make sense and who understands that projecting American strength abroad deters threats and keeps America and the world safer. Here's a message to John Fetterman. If the Democrats who in Pennsylvania are extremely liberal, particularly under little Governor Josh Shapiro, if they have a problem with John Fetterman, maybe he should run for the Republican nomination for the Senate when his seat comes up. I think he could win it. He's a man of incredible common sense, if not any sartorial style. But to his credit, he did wear a suit and tie to the State of the Union address. So he's stepping up in the world. CBS News is now trying to cover for Eric Swalwell, the candidate for Congress. He's facing criticism after running a weak and politically motivated campaign. The controversy stems from allegations reportedly being circulated by left-wing activist Cheyenne Hunt, who claims multiple women will soon come forward with additional allegations of sexual misconduct against Swalwell. So far, none of the accusers, other than one, have publicly stepped forward. That is expected to happen today or tomorrow at the latest. We are holding our breath. Swalwell has denied the accusations outright, also rejecting claims that his office required staff to sign non-disclosure agreements. His campaign has blamed political opponents for spreading unverified rumors. I guarantee you by the end of the day, he'll be blaming me. Despite the lack of confirmed allegations, CBS News published a report attempting to connect Hunt to one of Swalwell's political rivals, former Congresswoman Katie Porter, who is also running for governor in an attempt to cover for Swalwell, or at least debunk the reports. The CBS report pointed to indirect links, such as attending the same university or appearing in a photo together, but offered no concrete evidence that the charges against Swalwell had been orchestrated by Porter's campaign and that they were in cahoots. The irony here is the Democrats now find themselves caught in the same kind of unverified allegation cycles that they often have promoted in the past, such things as the Me Too movement and the Believe All Women witch hunts of the not-too-distant past. But CBS News should be ashamed of themselves for covering up for someone as reprehensible as the pothead weirdo Eric Swalwell. You're listening to the Stone Zone. I'm Roger Stone, and we'll be right back.
It's crunch time at work, and you need to bring wings to your workday. Visit redbull.com/gettingitdone and answer a couple questions about your work style to get a Spotify customized playlist tuned to your productivity. Plus, score a can of Red Bull on us while you go from to-do to done. And remember, Red Bull gives you wings. Supplies are limited. Terms apply. Visit the website for more information.
Are you stuck staring at your W-2? Are tax refund worries holding you back? You probably have FOMO, the fear of messing up. The fix? Using TurboTax on Intuit Credit Karma. They find every credit and deduction to help you get every refund dollar you deserve, or your money back. It's time to overcome your fear of messing up and get your taxes done right. Start filing today in the Credit Karma app.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. I don't know if you knew this, but anyone can get the same premium wireless for $15 a month plan that I've been enjoying. It's not just for celebrities. So do like I did and have one of your assistants switch you to Mint Mobile today. I'm told it's super easy to do at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
The Stone Zone. Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
And we're back in the Stone Zone. The Department of Justice reportedly launched an antitrust investigation into the National Football League, raising new concerns about how America's most popular sport is being delivered and how much fans are being forced to pay. According to reports, federal officials are examining whether the NFL's increasingly complex broadcasting deals are driving up costs and limiting access for everyday viewers. Games are now spread across multiple streaming platforms, often requiring fans to juggle several paid subscriptions just to follow their favorite teams. One government official said the probe is focused on affordability and ensuring fair competition among media providers. The issue has drawn bipartisan attention, but conservatives have been especially vocal about the burden placed on working families. I myself have disgusted by NFL head Roger Goodell. Several years ago, the NFL reached a legal agreement with its veteran players, all of them overwhelmingly African American, some Hall of Famers. Remember, the equipment was not as sophisticated in those days, and many of them suffered injuries. There was a $365 million settlement with those players, but almost all of that money went to monitors and lawyers, with the individual players getting almost nothing. This is racist, and it's wrong. So I'm calling on Roger Goodell, son of former New York U.S. Senator Charles Goodell, to do the right thing by his veteran players. It's time for them to pony up and pay those veteran players who made this sport great again. While we're at it, it's time for former New York Congressman Jack Kemp to be added to the Football Hall of Fame. Not only was Jack Kemp a congressman, one of the foremost proponents of supply-side economics, that's pro-growth, pro-job creation, pro-tax cut economics, which revolutionized the Republican Party, took the party from being the party of austerity and hard times to being the party of economic growth and hope. It's a message that Ronald Reagan adopted from Kemp. It is the message that Donald Trump adopted from Reagan. So, yes, upstate New York Congressman Jack Kemp, who played for the Buffalo Bills as well as the San Diego Chargers, should be added to the Football Hall of Fame. And frankly, I think President Donald Trump should consider giving him the Medal of Freedom, along with former Congressman Ron Paul. They'd be on my short list. In the meantime, the country's Secretary of Treasury Scott Bessent and the Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell convened an urgent closed-door meeting with major bank CEOs to address cybersecurity threats tied to a powerful new AI model developed by a company called Anthropic. The model, known as Mythos, is reportedly capable of identifying and exploiting vulnerabilities across virtually every major operating system and web browser. While Anthropic has limited its release, the company itself admits the technology carries both offensive and defensive cyber capabilities, an acknowledgement that underscores exactly how serious this risk is. Major banking leaders, including executives from firms like Citigroup, Bank of America, and Goldman Sachs, were briefed on the potential for AI-driven cyber attacks that could threaten the stability of the United States' entire financial system. So the message from federal officials was clear: prepare now. The development highlights a broader concern conservatives have raised for years, whether government and industry are exercising enough caution as powerful technologies rapidly evolve. Once again, innovation appears to be outpacing regulation and preparedness. Anthropic says it is proactively informing federal officials before unveiling Mythos, but questions remain about oversight, accountability, and the potential for misuse. At the same time, when Americans are already becoming wary of digital vulnerabilities, AI is extraordinarily dangerous. Just this week, the so-called journalist Laura Loomer posted a number of videos online that were not very favorable to me, but all you got to do is run them through a simple AI detection software program, and you'll find that they are completely and totally false. As George C. Scott said, playing George Patton in that movie, God, I love war. I love it. I love it more than life itself. You want to get down in the gutter with me, Laura, you're going to lose. Check it out online. I think you'll like it. It's a slugfest, the kind of politics that I love. I'm Roger Stone. You're listening to Stone Zone. Until tomorrow, God bless you and Godspeed.
Thanks for listening to The Stone Zone with Roger Stone. You can hear The Stone Zone with Roger Stone weeknights at 8 on 77 WABC. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?